All right, let's get into it. We all know the title, right? We definitely all know the hook. But what you might not know is that behind this absolute 90s slasher icon, there's this surprisingly deep, kind of tangled history. So today, we're going to unpack the legend of I Know What You Did Last Summer. I mean, think about it for a second. What if a story you tell around a campfire suddenly became a massive Hollywood blockbuster? Because that's pretty much exactly what happened here. The journey this story took from this whispered urban legend to a full-on franchise is way more complex and a lot older than you'd ever guess. Gives you chills, right? Just four simple words that somehow became this massive pop culture thing. This anonymous threat is the terrifying heart of the whole story. It's a simple message, but it promises one thing. You can't escape what you did. Okay, so to really get this film, you have to transport yourself back in time. The mid-90s, this was when the slasher genre just exploded back onto the scene. And this movie, it was in the perfect spot to ride that bloody wave all the way to the top. So it's late 1997. Scream has just come out and completely flipped the horror world on its head. And then, bam! I Know What You Did Last Summer drops at the absolute perfect moment. It wasn't just another movie. It was a total cultural event that just perfectly captured that whole 90s teen horror vibe. And, the film's real power is in how brilliantly simple the whole setup is. You've got four friends, one awful secret, and a killer who's hell-bent on revenge coming for them 1 year later. It's so straightforward, so high stakes, and it was just crazy effective. It basically became the blueprint for the entire franchise. And you can't argue with the results. Look at this. On a pretty modest $17 million budget, the movie goes on to make over $125 million worldwide. Now, critics, they were kind of so-so on it. But audiences did not care. They showed up like crazy, turning it into a massive hit and locking in its iconic status for good. All right, so this is where the story takes a really interesting turn. That hook-wielding fisherman, he wasn't just some character dreamed up for the movie. Oh no, his story goes back decades. So, believe it or not, the movie is actually based on a young adult novel from 1973 by Lois Duncan. But, and this is a huge but, the movie made a massive change. It totally ditched the book's kind of slow burn mystery vibe and just went full-on slasher. It swapped a gun for that unforgettable fishing hook, which, let's be real, is a way more personal and terrifying weapon. But wait, the story goes back even further than the book. The whole Hookman idea is a classic American urban legend, one that got its start way back in the 1950s. For real, it was a campfire story, a spooky tale that teens were whispering to each other for decades before Hollywood ever got its hands on it. And get this quote is from the first time the legend was ever written down in a 1960 Dear Abby column of all places. It tells you everything you need to know about its original purpose. It wasn't just about scares. It was a moral lesson, a cautionary tale to scare teenagers away from, being teenagers in parked cars.
The killer's timing is also just brutally psychological. He doesn't strike right away. He waits exactly 1 year. He's literally weaponizing what psychologists call the anniversary effect. He lets their guilt and trauma just sit and fester for a whole year, and then he attacks right when it's most likely to be bubbling back up to the surface. It just makes his revenge so much more cruel.
So, after that monster success of the first film, the big question was, where does the franchise go from here? Well, unfortunately, the numbers tell a pretty clear story, and it's a story of, things going downhill. Fast.
They rushed out a sequel just 1 year later, in '98.
And yeah, I still know made money, but that drop-off is huge. The box office went from $125 million down to $84 million. That's a pretty clear sign that the magic, that lightning in a bottle from the first film, was already starting to fade. And as for what the critics thought, oof, it was a complete freefall. Just look at these Rotten Tomatoes scores. The sequel drops to a measly 10%. And then there's the 2006 direct-to-video movie, I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, which is sitting at a mind-blowing 0%.
You can't get any lower than that. The franchise had officially hit rock bottom. And for years, that was basically it. The franchise just went quiet. After that third movie completely bombed, it was pretty much banished to the world of direct-to-video sequels and eventually a 2021 TV reboot that, it tried, but it just couldn't bring back that old magic.
But as we all know, especially in Hollywood, you can't keep a good legend down. The fisherman is sharpening his hook once again, all thanks to a very, very popular trend that's happening right now.
We're living in the age of the legacy sequel. You've seen it with Scream, with Halloween, with Saw. It's this formula, right? You revive a franchise that's been asleep for a while, you honor the original, you bring back the original stars, and then you have them pass the torch, or in this case, the hook, to a brand new generation.
And yep, that is exactly what is happening here. In 2025, which is more than a quarter of a century after the last theatrical movie, I Know What You Did Last Summer is officially coming back to the big screen.
And they are following that legacy sequel playbook to a T. The original survivors, Julie James and Ray Bronson, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr., are officially returning, and they'll be there to guide a new group of teens, including big names like Madeline Klein, as they face this nightmare all over again. So, it really all comes down to this one big question, doesn't it? Can pure nostalgia, our love for the 90s, be enough to save this franchise and make it a hit for a whole new generation? Or are we about to find out that some secrets and maybe some legends are better left buried?